In conversation with Gary Feinstein. Gary Feinstein has worked in science-related field for most of his life and ran a small contract testing laboratory business for 25 years. Currently, he works for SCORE, a voluntary organization that provides free business counseling to local communities and mentors students at Wesleyan University as part of their Startup Incubator program. His writing life began during the COVID era after a cross-country road trip out west inspired him to explore his untapped creative side. Back home, he started writing and never looked back. The result is its debut young adult novel Under the Family Tree. Gary was born in New York and has lived all over the Northeast. Currently, he resides in Haddam CT with his wife and 14-year-old dog. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to offer the show today, Gary Feinstein. How are you doing, Gary?
I'm great, Peter, and it's great to be on your show here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited as well, really. It's quite exciting, quite lovely to have you on the show today. I'm quite exciting. We're going to be having a lovely conversation around your beautiful title. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, Gary, I wanted to first say that I was taken aback while I read through the description page of your book, Under the Family Tree on Amazon. And I would like to ask you how this book came about. What inspired you to write Under the Family Tree?
Yes, so in your intro, you mentioned my cross-country trip.
Yeah.
Right before that, that was during the summer of COVID here in the US. Right before that, I'm starting to think about writing a book, but don't really have any solid ideas.
Mm.
We drove from my state in Connecticut to Montana, which is about 2,300 miles away,
Wow.
a little over 30 hours of driving. And we listened to a lot of books on tape to pass the time. One of the books we were listening to was a memoir from a middle-aged woman that on a whim decided to take a DNA test
Mm.
and was shocked to find out when the results came back that her father was not actually her biological father.
Wow.
So now, without telling you anything else about that story, guessing that Peter, you can probably think of it in different ways that it can go
Mm.
after that. Uh, Knew there was a person in my family also that was ended up looking for their birth mother on Facebook, found her, ended up
Mm.
moving in with her, but that didn't go well. So what
Oh.
I wanted to do was come up with a story using you kind of mining these possibilities, but making it more original. And what I came up with was my protagonist would be a, a teen girl uh, looking for her father, and I really like the idea of a teen searching for her biological identity at the same time struggling with her personal identity. I thought
Mm.
that the the dynamics of that can make for really good story.
Oh, wow. Good, amazing to know, really. I love your take on that. That sounds very great to me, and it to me sounds like a lovely way to becoming a writer, a beautiful introduction to becoming an author. So thank you so much for sharing. I love the short story to tell in there, and the story about the DNA as well. Sounds quite fun to me. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. And just for the sake of readers who haven't read the book yet, and of course, without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we would expect in terms of themes and subject lines picking up under the family tree? Plus, what is the book about? Yeah.
Kind of writer that starts with their story, and then I kind of figure out some of the thematic elements as I'm writing it. That being said, I mean, I knew originally the book would be about family in general, what makes up a family, the kind of secrets that family keep, uh, what role does biology play in it. And so that's kind of where I started. And as I began writing, I kind of discovered some other themes that relate to, trauma passed down from one generation to the next and how that affects people. And that relates to the secrets because a lot of people keep keep secrets about things like that. And so I found that as I was writing, I was kind of incorporating that as a theme as well. The novel itself is both a mystery and a coming of age story. It's classified as a young adult novel because there's a 16-year-old protagonist. Her name is Dakota Lodi. And at the beginning of the book, like I said, she's 16. She's at the end of her sophomore year in high school, a couple of days away from summer break. She's she's kind of angry at her mother. She's a little disappointed in herself in some ways that she couldn't help her mother more to help her avoid this kind of situation because there were drugs involved. But at the same time, she makes that decision at that time to search for her father.
Oh,
She has to move in with her grandmother, who she barely knows. She
mm,
hasn't seen her in about really hasn't had much contact with her in 10 years, and family court gives her custody. But she's not feeling too confident about her family, and she decides to search for her father. She's never known her father. She's heard stories about him. She has an old photo of him when he was like pretty much her age. Uh, and so what she does is she enlists the help of her best friend, Rosie Pena, who has a car and a license, and they go driving around town, uh, trying to track down her mother's old friends, some people she thinks
mm.
could be her relatives, but pretty quickly things don't go well for her. Most people aren't too happy about reliving the past, it seems, and some even a little hostile about the subject of her. The things even crazier, they cold case murder
Mm.
that's done by police that to be related to some. Are these people involved? Does her mother have any involvement? Is her father? They don't really know, and so that's really the mystery portion of the book. There's an alternating timeline of that follows Dakota during her sophomore year in high school as she tries to help her mother, financially and with her drug issues. But those timelines are kind of interwoven and are related to each other. But that's basically what the book is about.
Wow, you've got an amazing, beautiful narration in there, which to me sounds to be quite amazing and quite fun. I was taking some notes while you were speaking. I love to get back to as we proceed.
Okay.
Quite amazing, really. I love your description. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And Gary, one of the most interesting things to me as a writer is to listen to readers' feedbacks. You may want to agree with me that one of the things that makes literature to be complex is the fact that it can be interpreted in different ways by different readers based on their opinions. And sometimes the readers might get the message intended by the author. Sometimes they might be close to getting the message, and sometimes they might just mix the entire message, you know, just on itself. And as interestingly fun as it sounds, I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your work differently than you intended? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I really like this question a lot because it's something I think about all the time.
Mm,
Uh, I think that my novel has a lot of complexity and a lot of layers to it, and the way I wrote it kind of invites different interpretations. And I'm okay with that to the degree. The characters are very complicated people. Some of them don't always do the right thing.
mm,
So I'm open to, like different people looking at the characters different ways, picking things up from the story, they
mm,
like or don't like. I'm okay with that. When people get it really wrong, I have a couple of examples of each thing here. For example, the mother is kind of a divisive character in some respects, in that it's easy to interpret her as being a bad mother because she ends up in
mm.
jail and her daughter has no mother for 4 years. I
Wow.
tried to portray her in a somewhat sympathetic manner, as Dakota really doesn't understand her during their high school years, but during the mystery portion of the novel, she's learning out a lot more about her. That gives her a greater understanding. A really bad mom, and that's it. A more
Mm,
nuanced take on it, but I think I can understand people feeling like. Uh, One really bad interpretation I had was about the grandmother. Someone said, well, Dakota's life is really hard. Her mother's in prison, and she has a grandmother that's not willing to take care of her. And I
Wow.
have no idea where they got that interpretation because the woman moved from Florida to Ohio. She bought a house, got a job. The family court gave her custody. And I don't think I had a single sentence that implied
Mm.
she wasn't willing to take care of her. So that was a little odd for me. But for the most part, I like different interpretations, and I kind of like those things. I think they lead to some pretty good discussion points about
Yeah.
things. So I
Absolutely.
don't mind that at all.
I think that's one of the importance of opinion, especially if you're in a gathering of book lovers like yourself. You guys sitting
Yeah.
in a round circle in a city room or hanging somewhere to discuss about books. And when A would stand up to give a own opinion, another person would say, "Oh no, this is what I think of it. It's a bit different." Another person would like, "Oh, I don't think it's like that. It's this way round. The author doesn't." So different opinions, why the authors have no idea or intention, always leads to an amazing, lovely conversation. And I love that even myself as a writer. It's something that I love wholeheartedly. When listening to readers' feedbacks, hear them say certain things about your characters, about your development, about your point of view, about what you intended, about your teams, etc. It's always fun to hear, fun to watch, yeah?
Yeah, I have no problems expressing what my intentions were in a different
Mm,
scene or a character, and but it, like I said, it leads to an interesting discussion because let's face it, in real life, we interpret people in situations differently as humans. We
yeah,
can sometimes look at the same event happening or someone speaking to you, and two people can interpret that differently. So I think
yeah.
that complexity in a novel is I think is a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love your take on that. Yeah, thank you. And now, young adult novels often write or die with their protagonists. I'll say that again. Young adult novels often write or die with their protagonists. What makes Dakota unique and attractive to readers, if you'd like to share with us?
I think that's especially true of young adult novels because the whole novel is told through her point of view. So if you don't get that right, that's your book is not going to be engaging to readers. Uh,
Mm,
I think the Coda readers is just she comes across as a real person. She has a lot of she's multidimensional, a lot of different sides
wow.
to her. She's very funny. She's smart, but she doesn't do well in school.
Mm,
She's got a bit of swagger to her, but yet she makes a lot of mistakes and bad decisions that her into trouble. She's unpredictable, which I think makes her
wow.
any scene she's in dynamic because you don't know what she's going to do. But I think there's a messiness and vulnerability to her that I think teens will identify with. And I think she's very persistent and courageous sometimes. And I think
Mm,
that could be inspiring to teens, where I think adults can access the 16-year-old side of themselves
mm,
once again and kind of, go back to those, that part of their lives. But I think the character is crucial.
mm.
In it.
I love your take on that. Thank you for sharing. And again, before
You're
I
welcome.
proceed, I'd like you to raise the book to the camera just so we see what it looks like. Yeah, beautiful
You see
cover
that?
under the family tree. Would you like to tell us about the making of the cover and that looks like a bicycle in there? Does it have a meaning?
Yes, yes. Well, I'm a self-published author, so I actually subcontracted out the cover and the interior design.
Wow.
And one of the first things the cover designers don't read the book, they have a summary. And then one of the most important things they asked for was an, an image, a couple of images that described your novel. Uh, Under the family tree, I have the tree, obviously, and a family tree is a common, descriptor of
Mm,
branches of a family. So I wanted a tree with no leaves. Uh, the the sneaker at the bottom, that's actually checkerboard Vans, is kind
oh.
of part of the code is a fashion vibe, I would say. There's a lot of fashion in this book, and so she would wear those sneakers. But the bicycle to me was the key.
Mm,
Uh, the bicycle is pretty much a metaphor for Dakota's sophomore year because
Oh
obviously
wow.
it's a busted up bicycle that's either crashing into the tree or coming back after crashing from the tree. And the
Hmm.
bicycle is also a character in the novel. By a
Wow.
character, I don't have a talking bicycle. It's not that, but it's a, it's a something that shows up in about 5 or 6 chapters and is really kind of crucial to the high school
Hmm.
timeline. So it's both a metaphor and it actually shows the bicycles is really important in the book. So
Hmm.
that's how the cover came about. And I wanted it to convey kind of the of the book too.
Oh, wow, that's amazing to know, really. That's quite great. Thank you so much for your lovely explanation of how the cover and, the tree, the bicycle came to be. Thank you. And now there's this question I like asking authors and Pearl. I've always been fascinated, surprised by how authors, especially novelists like yourself, would sit down and craft long sentences and bring words together in a way that sentence makes paragraph and paragraph make pages and pages make chapters and chapters come together to make an eventual great novel. And this always leaves me thinking, how exactly did they get the idea and inspiration to craft these sentences, this paragraph, these pages, this trunkload of novel? Like it's very huge and a bit voluminous, like the one you just shown to the camera. And as
Right.
far as writing is concerned, I'd love to ask you, how do you get the inspirations and ideas to write your books? Where did they come from?
Yeah, I mean that's a complex question. I think I start obviously I gave you kind of the intro as how I came up with the original idea,
Yeah,
but that doesn't just because a book.
yeah.
It took me about 3.5 because I was at the beginning I was a person that didn't have as much experience in creating.
Mm,
I'm not a person that plans everything out when they write. I kind of had an idea where the story was going, but the middle
mm,
part I didn't really know. Uh, I'm not an autobiographical writer either, really. I take snippets of my life and a little
mm,
scenes that may have happened to me and throw and toss them in. And there's definitely some coping mechanisms that Dakota uses in her life that I kind of used in my life. But inspiration, I think you have to be open to inspiration because it could come from unexpected places.
yeah.
I did a lot of writing and rewriting and deleting scenes and creating new ones where I thought something didn't work. And sometimes I would just, walk my dog outside and
Mm,
some lines of dialogue would pop into my head and I would go home and write them down. Uh, Probably the biggest plot twist in my book, really one of the most important scenes in it came to me when I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning out of a deep sleep and I just had this idea and I just said, oh, wow, that's like a great idea, and it's going to really kind of tie a lot of the loose ends of the book together. And I kind of rolled with that. And so I think you got to be open to inspiration at almost any time, and be willing to switch things up, things that aren't working.
yeah, I love your take on that. And while you were speaking, I was going to add this. It's a nice way how things pop up in one's head. But it's another thing to go ahead, sit down, and write the things that pop up in one's head. Because sometimes myself, I can be very lazy. When those words are popping up in my head, I'll be like, oh no, hold on a bit. I want to rest a bit. No, not today. Hold on, just give me some more time. Come back. Stop. Me telling it to come back as if it's gonna have to. But the beauty of writing is the fact that once those things pop up, it's very good to sit down immediately and write them down because sometimes they might fly away. They might leave. It might not
Yeah.
come the exact way it came the in nature time. Yeah, because
No,
recently a bit back in terms of writing because when this was come, I'll be like, oh no, I want to do some other thing. I'm a bit busy now. Could you please come back? And I think it's a very bad habit, really. I think it's very good to just make do with them. Have your pen, your notepad, your phone, whichever one you're using, and as they're coming, jot them down immediately. Because that's the best way to have them transition into books.
yeah. What I will say about that is I have like notebooks filled with ideas like that.
Hmm.
Most of them don't work out.
Hmm.
I don't go with it. So really, it's just a small percentage that are like, okay, this is just great. This works so well.
Mm,
but idea and I'll write it out a scene and change something in it. The next day I look at it and say, no.
mm,
So, but I think that that's a process, and I know you're a poet, and you probably do the same thing. You probably write
yeah,
down different ideas, and probably most of them don't work, but every once in a while
yeah,
you find gold.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, apart from Under the Family Tree, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on?
I don't. My book just came out about a month ago, and I'm kind of working on, getting, more exposure to it and doing some marketing. Uh, I have some ideas on a new novel. I haven't, I've sketched a few things out, but that's not really, I haven't really started. I have to kind of start my new, get back to my writing routine, which
You're
I've kind of gone away
currently
from recently.
you're currently in your resting stage.
I am in the resting stage. Yeah. Yeah, I'm, uh, yeah, I'm like a moth turning into a butterfly. I'm waiting for the right moment. Or a worm turning into a butterfly, whatever.
That's quite fun to know. That was very fun to know, really. I enjoy your answer to that. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, yeah. And now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? I know you mentioned you just recently got published, but then I'd still like to ask you, are there any challenges you faced in the process of writing this book and also ever since it got published?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of challenges writing the book because I I'm a pretty big reader too. So like when I started out writing, I was reading books at the same time that were really good,
Um,
and I would read the book and I would look at my writing the next day and know that it just at that point it just wasn't good enough. And so
mm,
I think the challenge of writing, especially for a first time writer, is to understand kind of the process of writing and what it takes to like that really good book I read, probably somebody like rewrote those chapters and sentences multiple times. And you have to learn how to trust the revision process. I found that eventually I would get to where I wanted to go, but it would yeah, I had to be patient, kind of trusting that
mm,
process. As far as about the publishing process, the biggest challenge for me, because I'm self-published, is just being noticed. You know what I'm saying? If people don't really know who I am and don't know the book, I think it's a good book that people will like if they find it, but it's kind
mm.
of a needle in a haystack right now, just sitting there.
Yeah. And also, I'd like to hear your take on this. As a published author, what sort of advice do you have for writers who are still struggling with publishing a book? What would you advise people in this category?
I think the most important advice I give is you really need to try to write the best book that you can. I think that's the first, because you can be great at self-publishing and all of that and nail that, but if you don't write a good book, no one's going to
Yeah.
really care. So you need to get help. You need to have people that you show the book to, that you get feedback,
Mm,
uh, beta readers, editors, uh,
yeah.
different people, and I think I think that's the most important part.
This.
After that, it depends. I mean, if you want to try to get an agent or something like that, you want to really learn as much about the publishing process before you start like querying agents or something like that, because I think I probably started that process a little too early before I was really ready, and that was a mistake I made.
Mm,
As to self-publishing, I think self-publishing presents itself as like a really big mountain to climb and is a little intimidating. But again, it's like anything else. You just have to, there's a learning curve, and there's information there and organs that help you with that. And you just learn and I could do it. I think pretty much can.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's an amazing advice, and I'm hoping that viewers, even including myself, would love to utilize it. And now, before we wrap up, before we call it a day today, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your book that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
Uh, I don't have anything real specific, only that I think the book is a captivating read with really good characters, and it moves quickly, and it kind of intertwines a mystery, a murder mystery, a family secrets mystery with kind of a
Mm,
coming really kind of emotional a coming of age story,
All right.
and that all of this is happening at the same time, which was another challenge to me actually when I was writing, making that happen. But I think it's, I just think it's something that people will like if they gave it a chance. But that's really it.
Yeah, and just for the sake of viewers who are currently watching and would love to get a copy of the book, on what platform are they available on for purchase?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is garyfeinstein.com. Uh, and there's a link there to Amazon, or you can go to straight to the Amazon page and just type in Under the Family Show. It's also become available on the website of certain bookstores, Barnes and Noble. You can order it from there, and if you have a local bookstore, if they have an online store, you could check and see if it's there. But Amazon, Barnes and Noble, my website, anything
Yeah,
like that.
that's amazing. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Gary Feinstein's books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on his website and also another platform. I also left a link to his social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Gary, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say it's very wholesome and even more than awesome having this lovely conversation with you around your title. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Peter. It was great to meet you and have this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, my pleasure as well.